Croeso I sianel Blaid Llwyd. Yes, it's finally time for us to return to the Minotaur Hotel. Kind of didn't do this in November, it was just a lot of updates for the VNs coming out, but it's good to be back at the hotel. This might be a bit of a shorter video this week, because it has been an incredibly busy week in work for me. So let's try and take things easy and not rush too much on this one. There's a long way to go in this, which is going to be great fun. But we'll do a short section today. And who knows, we might meet someone new. But this is where we left it last. The start of chapter 15. New arrivals follow the same general pattern you witnessed when Greta and Ismail arrived, with Asterion displaying unmatched charisma as he dances around the fact that yes, he is a Minotaur. He's done this thousands of times already, taking in guests pulled from dire situations who must now face the reality there is more to the world than what their eyes can see. Around 4 p.m, the last of the new guests trickle in. While you finish some leftover paperwork, you tell Asterion to relax a bit. He grumbles and mutters a thing or two about his duty, but you insist that resting during downtime will give him the energy to be more productive later. That line of thinking is enough to convince him. He goes off for about an hour, after which he returns with his lyre in tow. By then the sun has begun to set and the reception area is empty. Lilac and orange clouds snake from the valley's west end over the hotel, reaching out toward the horizon to the east. Behind them the sky has taken on a purple hue, starting in a pale shade and darkening a notch every time you glance outside. You lean back in your chair, basking in the natural light as the room falls into a velvety dusk of its own. Surrounded by the scent of aged paper, soft, almost reminiscent of vanilla, you're left to contemplate the sunset vista, perturbed only by the dying breeze from the desert beyond. Asterion's fingers dance over his lyre's strings, not quite daring to pluck. Just the tension of grazing against them is enough to ring the faintest of notes, so discreet as to be rendered inaudible by so much as another person's breathing. You may not know the song he's playing, if any at all, but nonetheless you can anticipate a note here and there. You tap a finger to the melody, at least half the time you get it right. There the two of you remain, suspended between silence and stray notes. You look him in the eyes. It takes the Minotaur half a minute to feel your gaze and look up from the strings. When he does, he gives you a half smile, but his finger slips and the note he'd been caught in sounds off. You look away. He does the same, and then both meet again as if on cue. You chuckle. He grunts. His lyre continues its meandering song. His gaze turns pensive, however, when it falls on your armband. His lips part to say something, but an approaching discord makes him freeze. Outside you hear a car approaching. From your respective angles, only Asterion can see the car. He lets out a sputtering cough just as a large presence trundles in.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
The creature between you and Asterion carries a suitcase in either hand, one small enough to be carried at his side, and the other a storage trunk too unwieldy not to drag. He gives Asterion only a passing glance before settling on you.
Pardon my ignorance, but is this establishment a hotel?
He snorts, but his hardened nostrils do not flare. His throat lets out a grave hum, almost a purring, and his body emits a bonfire's warmth. Yes, this is a hotel. He remains unfazed by your delayed response.
Excellent. Once more, pardon my ignorance. I saw no sign on the road indicating this place's nature or its name. Regardless, I am glad the directions were correct. Please excuse my untimely arrival. Assuming you have a vacancy for a guest without a booking, I would like to check in. If possible, I'd like to stay for 28 days.
He pulls from his pockets a booklet and credit card and lays them on the desk.
You'll find my documentation is in order. My name is Robert of Geneva, and you may consider me a Swiss citizen. You may check my passport. You'll find I am a law-abiding citizen like any other.
I see. He opened his passport. Its pages are filled with stamps from all over the world. The page with his personal information features the picture of a surly-looking man. It does bear some resemblance to the demon in front of you, albeit only in a very abstracted way. As your eyes focus on it, however, the enchantment fades away. Gradually, Robert's face is revealed beneath the glamour. Well, I suppose it all checks out. If you could just fill out these forms, sir.
Oh, with pleasure. Ring attitudes, I take it that my kind are not unwelcome here?
This hotel takes in those who are lost. If you found your way here, then I take it you fit the bill. As with any other guest, you'll be welcome so long as you abide by our code of conduct. You'll find a copy of it included with the paperwork.
That's so. Let's see. Of course, these terms are uncontroversial. I'm happy to have such strong norms here. Very fitting. Very well. Is everything in order?
It would seem so. Asterion, could you take our guest to his room?
Oh, yes, sir. Please come with me, Mr. Robert. Allow me to take your luggage. Courteous of you, but worry not. I'll take it myself. Let us proceed. I mustn't forget. I happened to find a lost traveller on my way here. A good sense told me to ignore him, but the arid landscape convinced me otherwise. I gave him a ride, but as you can see, my passport seems to have malfunctioned. The poor fellow had quite a scare. He must still be recovering in the parking lot. If you'd be so kind, could you offer him some support?
Of course, it'll be our pleasure. We can have a room prepared for him as well.
Perhaps you'll appreciate your offer. Very well, I won't take any more of your time. Mr.
Asterion.
What a traditional name. Mr. Asterion, let us proceed.
And there's the lost traveller. After giving the hotel's interior a peek, he tiptoes his way in, scarcely making a sound. Hello, good evening. You're the fellow who got a ride from Mr. Robert?
Yes, that's me. Mr. Robert, as you call him, gave me the scare of a lifetime. My heart is still beating out of my chest. But you want to like getting a ride from a stranger, and he turns into a demon, with horns and everything. I was about to start pleading with him not to take my soul. Still can't believe I'm alive and breathing. Still, I have no clue how we got here.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. I can imagine how tough it was. I too had a sudden run-in with a very fantastical person a while ago. Might take a while to get used to it, but it gets easier with time.
Is that so?
The stranger's eyes become hawk-like for a split second.
Say, could you be so kind as to tell me where I am?
This is a special kind of hotel. We specialise in taking in people who might be going through a rough time.
Would you say this is a hotel for the lost?
Yes, that's a nice way to put it. And if you'll pardon the pun, you must be quite lost yourself. Mr. Robert told me about your predicament. If you'd like, I can get a room ready for you in a minute so you can enjoy a good night's rest.
What a kind gesture. I'll gladly accept it, except I'm afraid you haven't mentioned the pricing.
You don't have to worry about that. This operation is essentially humanitarian in nature. We don't need to charge. Even if we did, our targeted clientele doesn't necessarily always have much money to spare.
No charge, huh? Now, I don't mean to look a gift horse in the mouth, but is this some kind of trick? Nothing in the fine print I should be aware of? Are you going to twist things around and perhaps say the price was my soul or something?
Oh, not at all. There's no twist. Besides, if someone were to snatch your soul, I'd place a higher bet on the horned demon than the unassuming human. Well, you know what they say, appearances can be deceiving. Very well, I suppose I can't reject such hospitality. Although I wonder how you keep the lights on in a place like this if you're not charging for room and board. Magic and the creative use thereof. That doesn't exactly inspire confidence, buddy. The magic of hospitality, that is. That's better. Shall I prick my finger and sign in blood then? Just fill up this form, if you will. Sorry to say there'll be no soul shenanigans or blood pacts. My business partner would never approve. The traveller's hand flows over the paper, leaving behind an uninterrupted trail of fine calligraphy. Passes it back over to you with both hands once he's finished. You need to do a double take to be sure you got it right. Very well, Mr. Jean-Marie Clément from Bordeaux, France. That's correct, although friends just call me Jean. You look up to the traveller, now with your own set of hawk eyes. That's a very remarkable name. Classy, isn't it? It was my father's idea to honour his uncles. My family does that sort of thing all the time. I'm afraid I didn't get your name, Mr. Just call me Leo. I suppose you must be tired. I'd better give you a quick tour of our facilities and escort you to your room. Leo. Now that is quite peculiar. I'm a delivery man, you see, and I was tasked with making a delivery to a certain hotel for the lost for a man called Leo. What a welcome surprise. This was perhaps the hardest job of my entire life. Finding Leo was nothing short of a Herculean task. But it would seem fate, in the form of a demon, has brought us together. I suppose getting to this hotel might be an arcane task indeed. Sorry it caused you so much trouble. That said, would you rather leave business for later tonight? You are a guest, and it'd be awfully impolite of me not to afford you the chance to wash up and have a proper meal first. Hospitality still lives. Very well, I'll take you up on your offer. We can reconvene later tonight after I've had some time to relax. Your facility's half as good as your manners, and I'm sure they'll leave nothing to be desired. You escort Jean-Marie to his room and inform him about the schedule for dinner. Later in the night, Nono fetches your and Asterian's order. You didn't even have to correct his notes this time, or remind him not to walk to the kitchen on all fours. Asterion plays with a few crystals from the jar you'd left on what seems to have become your designated table. Peculiar day, wouldn't you say? Not every day we get a demon? I'm not very knowledgeable about this whole mythology's real thing. Was it common for the hotel to house demons in olden times? No, it wasn't very common for us to get many non-humans in the first place. It is quite extraordinary that our first two guests were who they are. But even among the more fantastical of our guests, no, never in all my years did we house a demon. I am just as lost as you are. Did you ever see a demon like him while you were in Hades? Most certainly not. It is like nothing I ever saw down there. Do you think he'd know something about gods and the afterlife? Could there be a chance he'd know something about the afterlife or maybe the gods? You mentioned he's a Swiss citizen. He might still have some privileged information. Perhaps. I must admit I wouldn't know. But are you sure you wish to pursue that line of inquiry? What do you mean? Well, it's as the song says. Do you remember? While you live, shine, have no grief at all. Life exists only for a short while, and time demands its due. I used to say, perhaps it's for the best that mortals don't go too far in the pursuit of knowledge about what lies beyond. What you learn may be unsettling, and a man's life is far too short for such grievances. I see your point, and you may be right, but I was thinking that what he could know may be useful in how he manages the hotel. Maybe he knows something about the Greek gods and where they are now. Even immortals shouldn't ask too many questions about things like that. We could still benefit from learning and thinking ahead. Your conversation is cut short as you and Asterion notice a duo approaching your table. None other than Jean-Marie, the deliveryman, and Robert the demon. You and Asterion straighten up.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Bonsoir. What a fine night you have so graciously provided. Robert and I couldn't let it pass without taking a minute to compliment your hospitality.
Indeed, you are leading a fine establishment, Mr. Leo. It is truly a sight to behold.
It's very kind of you. It's a relief to hear such words. I'll take them as confirmation we are succeeding in our mission. That said, I can't lose the chance to clarify, Mr. Robert. My dear friend Asterion here is co-owner of this hotel. Truth be told, he's both the brains and brawn of the operation. More often than not, I find myself playing only a supporting role in facilitating his good work. Once more, your kindness is dearly welcome, but it should be directed at my partner instead of me.
Is that so? I stand corrected then. Mr. Asterion, I am thoroughly impressed with the structure you have here.
You are very kind, sir. Would the two of you care to join us for dinner tonight?
I don't mind if I do.
Tell me, who designed this place? Welcome to this lounge. I took a stroll, and it seems as if the hallway stretched on forever, branching left and right every half a dozen doors. Common sense told me I'd become irreversibly lost if I wandered too far, but I'd find my way back to reception in the blink of an eye if I so much as thought about returning. How was the effect achieved? I absolutely must know more about the architect behind it.
The architect. Where was my...
He grasps at the words he wishes to say, somewhat lost in possibilities. He directs only the briefest glance towards you. The Minotaur searches your face for disapproval, jealousy, pride, but finding nothing of the sort, Asterion returns his gaze to the two guests.
The hotel is very old. It was a distant ancestor of mine who engineered it, but its latest iteration is my own design, and a work in progress at that. As with hallways, I do wish I could share the knowledge with you, but my forefathers would not look kindly on it.
Unfortunate. I'm sure many a mathematician would appreciate learning your forefathers' methods, but your rejection is easy to accept. If you'll not think it presumptuous, I shall consider it a secret of Minotaurs. Well, fighting it is in these modern days, so destitute of wonder, your kind would still command ancient traditions. And I think that the whole world of mythical beings, even I believed your lineage to be only a legend.
Your pardon? Buddy, if you'll excuse my bluntness, you're a demon. Likewise, I understood correctly you were talking about this place being some kind of infinite hotel. And then you say mythical people think Minotaurs are just a legend? How can that be? Isn't that quite the hypocrisy?
It may seem so at first, surely. There are many kinds of supernatural beings roaming the world even today, hidden thanks to the charms. Does not mean every legend, myth, or folktale is about some unseen species. For centuries now, among scholars of fantastical nature, it's been firmly believed that Minotaurs are just a myth. That the old Greek legend...
Cretan. It is a Cretan legend.
Pardon me, I suppose that could be a point of pride for you, yes? Very well, it's believed the Cretan legend of the Minotaur hid a more mundane truth. One of the hypotheses that the so-called Minotaur was merely a priest or holy man who took on a helmet shaped as a bull's head during certain ceremonies or sacrifices. As for the story of how he came to be, well, as the myth goes, the Cretan queen took the bull's lurch with the assistance of crafty Daedalus, correct? But the motif of a divine woman consorting with a divinely created bull is recurring in the Minoan royal lineage, so to speculate that this tale is merely allegorical. Oh heavens, I'm rambling. Well, I'm sure our fine host knows much more about the topic than anyone ever could, though it would not surprise me if he's somehow bound to secrecy.
Asterion's nostrils flare as he lets out a long breath of air. You can just notice him biting his lip. Roll doesn't seem to be distressing him.
My family has its own version of the story, one which I believe to be very accurate. Minoan royal lineage was closely tied to the gods in many ways. It was common over the generations for the Olympians to take on the transitory form of a bull to bless that generation's queen with a special heir. To summon a god, the king would offer his own blood in what was a holy and revered ritual. who said the child descended from both the king, whose blood initiated the rite, and from the god who answered his call.
Wait, so... if queens often did that as a respected ritual, what made Pasiphae's actions any different?
There was no blessing in her case, only a curse.
Asterion's eyes wander to yours. You blink and he does the same with a face as stoic as stone.
Fascinating. And I take it you are sure this is the true story, as your family kept records.
There's no doubt about it, Robert. Look at its eyes. Never has a man said truer words.
Yes, this is the truth, as accurate as an arrow is sharp.
Oh, this night is getting better with each passing minute. I will love my vacation here, I can already tell.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. More than you might imagine. It's been such a short while since we opened the hotel, but it's brimming with life already. People seem so happy to be here. Sometimes it is hard to accept that things are going so well.
You better get used to it, buddy. If it's up to you and me, they'll just keep getting better and better.
Yes, they will. I can see that.
It would seem Rome really was built in a day for Romulus and Remus here got it set up so quickly. But if you care to hear, I have a suggestion for how to improve your fine establishment. It's that thing, Robert, the one we talked about just a minute ago.
Oh, yes, that is a good suggestion.
Here it goes then. There's no sign, nothing in front of the place telling people what it is or what it's called. Does this hotel even have a name? So far I've only heard people referring to it as, well, the hotel. Oh, that's a valid complaint. We've been so busy lately with getting the essentials and all that I never even thought about that. So focus on your work, you've got to give the place a name. If you'd care to hear my thoughts again, I'd say Leo's Hotel would suffice. Simple and to the point, wouldn't you say? I don't think I have it in me to do something like that. Honestly, it'd be way too gaudy for my tastes. Asterion, what's the tradition around here for that?
The owner is allowed to rename the hotel as he sees fit, which is made official through a customary celebration. Leo's Hotel will be not in any way unusual.
It may not be unusual, but it remains gaudy and creatively bankrupt. We can do better.
I thought the name was Minotaur Hotel. That's the Wi-Fi network's name.
Oh, huh. You and Asterion stare at one another. The Minotaur, perhaps without thinking, puts a hand on his bicep where the laurel wreath sits.
Leo.
Wait, there's Wi-Fi? What's the password?
It's Netzwerk sites with a capital N. A disgusting little thing, that is.
A Network Enforcement Act? Let's see, that isn't working for me.
Let me type it for you.
Asterion bites his lower lip.
Are you...
And just what if I am?
Honey tongue.
Guilty as charged. So, Minotaur Hotel?
The sovereign is the will of the partner, co-owner.
Now we're talking. Well, you gotta mean set up that renaming ceremony you were talking about.
Of course.
See, I'm curious. Just now Robert told me the password and I heard it in French, but he typed in some kind of German abomination.
Pardon my lack of manners. The Netzwerkgesetz is an unsightly piece of legislation, not appropriate to discuss among such fine company.
He just did it again. Wait, I think I get it now. We're in the car, we talked in English, but as soon as the landscape changed, I noticed Robert start speaking in a very eloquent dialect of French. Yes, there are many magical things about this place, one of which is how it translates everything people say and write. You probably heard Robert speaking French after the two of you crossed over into this realm.
John, I'm from Geneva. I speak French. You could have just asked.
Oh well, I didn't want to assume. Still, that's yet another fantastical thing that's got incomprehensible location, I suppose. Now, if I'm asking another question, when you say he's your partner, in what way do you mean it exactly? I wonder if there's a little linguistic ambiguity this place isn't picking up on.
Excuse me?
Oh, it's just the two of you seem so very close, I thought for a second that...
I'm sorry, I still don't understand.
The question was directed at Asterion, but you intervened to clarify. Asterion and I are business partners. That is how you should interpret his word choice. That I understand. But still, you two are quite close, is what I'm saying.
Jean, your intentions may be kind, but some will consider this line of questioning inappropriate. I recall either Asterion or Leo mentioned their sexual orientations. For all we know, they may not be compatible in the first place. If they are, commenting on such matters may still be unwelcome. And that doesn't even touch on, well, Asterion being a Minotaur and Leo being a human.
Midway through Robert's speech, Asterion leans closer to you and whispers,
Leo, what are they talking about?
Don't worry about it, I'll explain later. He nods. Sean, meanwhile, looks away as he gets lost in thought. Perhaps you're right, it was pretty rude of me for the most part. You know how it is, talking about sexuality is less taboo where I'm from. I admit I may have been too forward in that regard. When it comes to good Asterion here being a Minotaur, why should that be an impediment? I may not know much about what the traditions are like with you, shall we say mythical beings, but if two consenting adults love each other, nothing else matters, right? I had a kid, you know. He was born different. And from the day he was born, there were people who couldn't look past it. Not everyone, though. There were quite a few blessed souls who could see through his differences and like him for who he was. He's no longer with us. But that grace, that blessedness of being able to love even different souls, that I carry with me to this day. So what if Asterion's a Minotaur? That shouldn't get in the way of love. Asterion shakes his head, then covers his mouth to hide a dry, nervous cough. For a split second, your hand almost reaches out to pat him on the back, but Jean's words make you painfully aware of how every inch separating the two of you is a sea of meaning.
To make it clear, I don't disagree with you. However, I don't think the topic is appropriate at the moment, Jean.
I would prefer we change the subject, yes.
Very well, I'll let it go, with the caveat that I still stand by what I said.
Of course.
You and Asterion remain quiet. The space between you suddenly raw and awkward. Robert takes the chance to check his phone while Jean looks around the room. The silence is broken by Nono bringing you your plates.
So, do you follow the custom of saying grace before meals?
Grace, I would not put it like that, but every day I make an offering to the gods.
The gods? Oh, which ones?
The 12 Olympians, of course, plus Lady Hestia and Lord Hades.
Oh, typical. I should have guessed the Minotaur would worship the Greek gods.
Don't say it like that, it sounds so dismissive. I've always appreciated learning more about his beliefs. Say, Mr. Asterion, would you be willing to demonstrate how an offering is done?
Of course, it would be an honour.
Never guessed anyone would still worship those old gods. It's been thousands of years, after all. For how long have you been praying to them?
Since I was a boy. My lineage has prayed to them for thousands of years, and I was taught to do the same at an early age.
But you really believe they exist? Isn't it absurd in this day and age to hold on to such archaic ideas?
Oh no, I'm sure they exist. How else could I be here tonight if not for them?
Yes, but...
Oh, shush, Sean, let the man be. You're distracting him from the offering.
Jeez, okay, big guy, I'll shut my mouth. Asterion rises from his seat, back as unshakable as the fortress's walls and as wide as a step. He hums a song all too familiar, summoning a bottle of wine. You and the hotel respond in unison. But before proceeding toward the hearth, he glances at you, the corners of his lips curled into fine crescents.
Would you care to join me, Leo? It would be an honor sharing this with you.
You rise just as high as the Minotaur did, and together you stride to Hestia's fire. He kneels by the hearth, and you do the same. When he raises his arms to the ceiling, however, a sense of shame stops you from bringing yours as high as his. Conversation and laughter, cutlery clinking against dishes and glasses clanking on the wooden tables, every little hum and song of life. It all fades, as though velvet surrounded you and Asterion. You're left only with your and your partner's breathing and the crackling of the fire. All light except that which it offers grows dim.
Respect the ones in need of gifts of friendship and home.
You look to the side, and Asterion too is looking at you.
You should have the honours. To which god shall we dedicate this offering?
And for a particular reason, I think we might go with this one tonight.
Slayer of cattle, contriver of plots, hard worker, comrade of the feast, the lyrical music you invented and clever guests invited are worth 50 cows, and so we shall settle our differences peacefully hereafter.
Asterion lays a finger over the wine bottle's opening, lets out only a trickle of wine, first to pacify the ashes around the flame, and only later to battle against its might.
We shall remember you tonight and always. In our hearth you shall find wine, and if your mercy would grant us excellence in all things, we shall tell tales and sing songs of your feats.
The velvet surrounding you dissipates, allowing sound to break through once more.
What a fine ceremony. I couldn't make out everything you said, but I'm glad I got to witness such an ancient form of worship.
You are too kind, Robert. It's not every night I get an audience for one of my simplest duties. If you enjoy my culture so much, you're welcome to ask all your questions.
Whatever you say, I might just take the offer or be here all night.
The night goes on. You, Asterion, and the guests. For these few hours you live without regret. Whatever memory you might muster of Jean and his delivery fades, but his does not. When you and the Minotaur leave to return to your quarters, he follows.
Hey, you two, don't go just yet. This was a terrific night we had, lads, but make no mistake, I came here for work. This is the reason why I came all the way here. First-class delivery.
Jean hands you an envelope. Its surface is so finely preserved, corners so sharp and increased, you would not be surprised if only just left its sender's desk.
Do you know who sent it?
I can't say I do that. Someone might have mentioned the client's name, but I can't recall it. It came from headquarters just like this, with a set of instructions on how to get here. Which weren't much help, I can tell you that. I was, however, told you have any response to this message, I should take it back to headquarters and it'll get shipped back.
Asterion affords you privacy by turning around while you dig a finger into the crisp paper. The letter itself, an A4 white sheet, has not been graced with such divine perfection. It is folded 3 times, but unevenly and with its corners rumpled. You unfold it. It takes you a few seconds to recognize the symbols on the paper as they swim around and stitch themselves together with aid from the hotel's translation. You stare at it, waiting for its contents to reveal themselves. The letters melt away and become unconnected scribbles. You force your gaze further, and by your command the letter's contents coalesce back into their original shape. What lies revealed to you is an incomprehensible mess of childlike scribbles, flowing first from cursive-like characters to snaking lines, into something like the ridges of mountains on the horizon. For a moment you consider the possibility this may be a map. But were that the case, the land it depicts is one and the same with the sea around it, like a ruptured cell spilling its contents. When that fails, you fear for your mental health. Could you be having a stroke, rendering you incapable of reading and piecing things together? But the gods are not so terrible. Your brain is fine. The truth of the matter is that this letter, for the most part, contains only incomprehensible scribbles. Take note, however, for at the very bottom of this wasteful exercise there are 2 lines which your mind and the hotel can interpret. I'm sorry for not being good enough. P. Asterion gives you a sideways glance. You turn to him. There's not much to this. It's mostly gibberish. The hotel's translation can't make any sense of it. Whoever wrote this wasn't all there in the head when he... The gods are terrible indeed. Forgotten evils worm their way in once more.
Leo, is everything all right?
This is a letter from... Well, it's a bit upsetting. I think it's from the man who gave me the hotel's deed.
Oh. Clément.
You notice just a slightest slump in his shoulders, then a snort as goosebumps climb the Minotaur's spine. His fur, short as it may be, stands on end as he scratches the back of his head.
You're still around, then?
His fingers dig in like a hand digging away at dry soil. His scratch is louder than either your breathing or the distant sounds of ruckus from the lounge.
What does he say?
A bunch of scribbles. The hotel can't make sense of it. He was going senile when I met him. I assume he wasn't fully conscious when he wrote this either. There's just one thing I can read here, but it may be upsetting. Are you sure you want to hear it? For a moment, as brief as it takes from one's mind to realise the wrongness of what it sees, Asterion's eyes turn dark and bullish. It's comfortable to forget that Asterion's bovine nature runs deep in his skin alone. His head has slowly dropped over these past few moments. His neck, however, remains stiff and tight. This is the face of a bull about to charge, featureless, lacking, cornered, blank. It does not answer your question, although a part of you may believe he indeed does not wish to hear it. For whatever reason, you say it, word by word. I'm sorry for not being good enough. It's signed with P. Clément. Oh, that's right, I recall that. That's the name headquarters mentioned. Clément, the Frenchman, correct? Oh, sorry, it would seem I'm interrupting something. I'll take my leave now. Have a good night, you two. With him gone, you take a step towards Asterion. Your hand almost rises to touch his arm. The Minotaur's scorching gaze indicates the contact may not be welcome. You stand there, closer but distant, suspended in the time it takes for a man's mind to chew through a bone.
He is alive.
So it would seem, although his mind not be there anymore.
Rendered from himself. Old age may separate soul from body long before death itself. Existing halfway is wretched. Zeus takes half the goodness out of a man when...
The Minotaur swallows, then breathes in, hitches through his teeth. There's just a flicker in his eyes to signal a plea for help. You cover the last stretch and hug him. You gather the man, you gather the bull, you gather the friend into himself, and you enfold him to try and mend the broken pieces. The pressure from within threatens to boil over. You squeeze, harder, and the more you do, the less claw-like his hands become.
Half the goodness.
With your face buried in his chest, you cannot see. The hallway echoes the snaps of his tail and ears, followed then by the beat of his hooves as he shifts left and right. He does not hug you back. His heavy head leans hard onto your own, onto your shoulder. His hooves don't stop shuffling even while his arms remain still. His head is monstrously heavy. Or is he bearing down on you? He curls around you in between snorts and grunts. You hold harder, lest all the pressure inside boil him alive. In turn your friend trembles. Feels as though every cord and muscle in him could not be drawn tighter. He seems to fight against struggling away. Settle down, stop the moronic random. Oh, shit, him, dog. Here's the prince. I was trying to find out his sleep. So came forward, so was you squatted if I could. God's good. Thought my life's too easy. Seriously, Kane. The rest of the world. I say it's fine. If you can break the boat, break a hole in the beam plate, it's fine. Breathe. Breathe, you dumb ball. Breathe and hold it. God, Zeus, Hestia, Poseidon, please don't. There are no sobs or hiccups. If one were to wish a heroic moment here, pain seldom makes a noble and beautiful martyr. No, this grief makes monsters out of men, and if one is to find beauty here, it is because of the man, not for his suffering. Hands squeezed into claws, back hunched over as you hug tighter and tighter, jaw tensed. Clement, what goes to his mind to send a letter now of all times? Shouldn't one such as he have the shame and grace to die far away? The Minotaur's hands, only half gnarled shut, press against your sides in stiff and confused jerks. He's not coming back. I won't allow it. Asterion snorts, then brings a hoof crashing down the tile floor. You look up and find his eyes inches from yours, dry as a desert. This is not sadness. Let's go home. He complies. By hand you guide him. Evening. You gather back all that daunting day is torn asunder. Late as it may be, you do not command Asterion to go to his room. This is not the state of someone who should handle themselves alone. Instead you sit on the couch. With concentrated movements he sets himself down. He lies on his side. He does not look, but his head is a few mere inches from your lap. It's an awkward position, but he does not move or adjust himself. Every minute or so he strains to glance up at you. His gaze is less guarded and direct now. It is empty, however, bereft. You look down to your lap as that same emotion rears its head in you. Time passes and nothing else comes until you speak. Talk to me, Asterion, please. His eyes turn away from you. Oh. If it's okay, would you look at me? He grumbles, tail thrashing behind him, and then snorts. Asterion keeps staring at some point far away for half a minute more for giving you a look, albeit wandering. His eyes dart to anywhere but your own. You're safe, that I can promise you. I won't hurt you or send you out, and I won't let in anyone who might threaten you. No harm will come to you, and together we'll pull through whatever comes to pass. I won't let anything bad happen. The hotel and all its guests are safe. We're partners and we can overcome anything if we both set our minds to it. I need something from you to accomplish our mission. I need us to talk about emotions. You'd rather not do it now, I understand. But I think it might do you good. What do you say? He turns away from you again, finally adjusts himself, is still. For long enough you almost take that as his answer. At last, however, his horn scratches the sofa as he nods. Good. Before we start, would it be okay if I came closer? You could lay your head on my lap. He grunts and curls up tighter, then goes still once more. His eyes are dulled, movements uncoordinated. It is without turning towards you that he pushes himself closer, hands flat against the couch as if his fingers are numb. His head is heavy, but a brief readjustment fits you and him together like a pair of seashells stacked. He's frozen at first. Every movement of his fingers and lungful of air comes in bursts and twitches. But memories of childhood, common across thousands of years, spring forth. You lay a hand on his head and tidy his fur. Short as it may be, it can still rebel, but 2 or 3 caresses are enough to straighten up the back of his neck. Then you explore between his horns. The fur here is longer, a tad closer to human hair, better to sink your fingers into. Do all children enjoy this? a parent, a sibling or a friend upon whose lap they can find comfort? And do all who benefit grow to share it with others? Running a hand over a friend's head, or a dear old gesture. One may be forgiven for doing it without asking permission, as long as he keeps quiet himself. Be very silent now. Let the man's breathe and settle, and it's less like a struggle and more like its usual rhythm. If another sound comes, a sniffle or snort, do not inquire. Know your place. He'll take all the time he needs. Meanwhile, you can ponder some great questions yourself, such as whether or not humans could, perhaps should, share a sense of borderless fraternity. Or perhaps you should ponder your own emotions, the multitude of affections a man may feel for another. While these thoughts dance, Asterion reacquaints himself with sound, flicks his ears in unison, switches his tail, readjusts his head and legs into a more comfortable position. In response, you hum. First the Sakhilov's epitaph he's taught you, and all the songs you remember from his concert. When those are over, you go on with a nameless melody you once heard from piano, or perhaps from an acoustic guitar. Song fills the void until Asterion's ready to take on the task.
I apologize if I forget what you've said tonight, Sir Leo. Sometimes I can barely hear anyone.
What do you mean?
Between my ears, sometimes it is all rain and wind and roaring thunder that never strikes. Sometimes I can't hear anything at all. I apologize you have to deal with that, like some unmanly, unruly calf. I apologize if I am lacking sense. I tire of myself in these states. By the 12, I've had long enough to learn not to be bowled over by living. Yet, living can be too loud for me, perhaps. I apologize.
There's no reason to. You did nothing wrong, and if you did, you'd have my forgiveness whether or not you asked for it. Are you feeling better now?
A little.
He scratched the top of his head. Does not shy away.
Still, I apologize. I shouldn't have let my anger take root.
If I was in your position, I might have gone berserk. No idea how I'd have acted. In that regard, you did well. But be honest, is your anger unjustified? Clement did horrible things to you. You have every right to be angry, Asterion.
No, I have no right to it, Leo. Try as you might to tell me otherwise. I know my place. What Clement did was only a return to form. The prisoner should not feel anger at the jailer for doing his duty.
But if not for you, then what about the guests he kicked out? Can't you be angry on their behalf? Asterion does not answer. He chews on his own tongue and looks away, but glimpses of emotion and thought flash behind his eyes. You let him be. When he leans his weight on your hand, you renew your scratching. Gather the bull, gather the man, gather the friend into himself. You lean back on the couch and close your eyes for a minute. Just a few minutes. And if he's feeling well and being left alone doesn't give the impression of being abandoned. And if he just wants to stay here in the living room, if he's not too drowsy. If, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he'll be fine. He's asleep. Familiarity vanquishes shame. Asterion wakes before you, head still resting upon your lap, just as dawn breaks and slips in through the window. Wordless, he accepts that the charade is gone. There is no need to self-flagellate over this kindness. In fact, it would be ungrateful, indecent perhaps, to make a scene out of it. No, this mercy he must enjoy. He stays in place, still and silent not to wake you, and closes his eyes once more. Nary does the memory of the previous night cross his mind. Later in the morning, while Asterion feeds the hearth's flames, you take over manning the reception. This allows you to meet Sean as he checks out. Leo, you and Asterion are fine hosts indeed. In all my years as a courier, seldom have I seen such hospitality. Most people would just have me do my job and be off. But not you, no. You took me and all these people in, and you treated us like family. I understand now how true your words were. This is a place for the lost, to give them a home. You're doing an amazing service here. Thank you, you're too kind. I'll make sure to tell Asterion you had a good time. He'll be just as glad as I am. You should, yes, but I must also apologise for my actions. I don't know what was in that package, but judging from your faces last night, it seemed to be an upsetting matter. I regret bringing sorrow to your home. Don't worry, Jean. It is a complicated matter, but you shouldn't feel any responsibility for it. Even so, it's unfortunate and kind of me to repay your hospitality in this manner. I cannot allow things to end like this. I have a proposal for you. I couldn't help noticing you seem to be understaffed. As you may guess, I travel a lot, and I come across all sorts of wanderers. If you want, I can keep an eye out for possible employees. I can spread the good news about this place. That'd be very kind of you. We really could use a few extra hands. Majestic. Is there anything pressing you can use some help with? If you give me a rough idea of what you need, it'll be easier to find someone who can get the job done. You think about Jean's question. What are some positions you need to cover? The lounge has been a lot more hectic lately, with all the new guests coming in. Courier's getting help from the kobolds, still having a hard time handling both the kitchen and counter duties. Not to mention, you're getting a little sick of ramen and miso soup every other day. You could use a cook. Taking in everyone in need without discrimination could also potentially be dangerous. As Robert demonstrated, just about anyone can enter the hotel with next to no opposition, and this may prove to be an issue if the next guest is not as affable as he is. Not to mention, employees sent to explore the labyrinth would feel a lot safer with someone reliable among them. Could use a watchdog, one that could keep people safe both in the hotel and while exploring the valley. Better yet if he's good company. Another issue with the growing number of employees is the need to handle everyone's salaries. So far you've been paying your employees in precious gems generated by the labyrinth, but you could be endangering them by making them carry such valuable items when they leave the hotel. A financier could take care of this matter, as well as handling the flow of currency in and out of the hotel and securing materials which you can't generate. Well, you saw the state the lounge was in yesterday. Coulter certainly has his hands full. You could find someone to help out in the kitchen. That would be excellent. Yeah, I'll keep my eyes peeled. Seeing a place like this prosper would warm my heart. But before I go, there are two final things. First, would you be so kind as to give me your phone number so we can keep in touch? Of course, just hand me your phone and I'll type it in. Jean offers you a scratched, dust-covered smartphone from the early 10s. It's already displaying its new contact screen. You input your number. When it comes time to put in your name, you can't help cracking a smile as a devious idea rises from the depths of chaos. You could, perhaps, who knows, maybe put in a silly name. He knows what our name is. Leo is what you type, and that is that. Now, I still have another subject I wanted to bring up with you. I regret my comments implying you and Asterion were an item. That was uncalled for and out of place. Oh, that. No harm, no foul, Jean. Thank you. It's good to know I didn't leave any sore feelings behind. That said, there is one comment of mine I cannot regret, and which, in fact, I will stress regardless of how unwelcome it may be. I am sorry to make assumptions, but if the two of you ever develop feelings for each other, you should not be deterred by the fact he's, well, a Minotaur. Really, Mr. Clement, I mentioned it last night, I think. I had a son who was born special, Leo. The father I feared of him. I loved my boy, and he was the joy of my life. But could others see his beauty and kindness as I did? Would he ever find love? I'm projecting, I know, but Asterion is different in his own way, and that should be no impediment for love. Sorry if this offends you. I'm not really sure what to think of what you said, but I can appreciate the sentiment. I don't think his look should be an issue either. And yes, he and I are friends. There's a lot more to the story. For starters, we're also business partners. In the instance that Asteria and I did, let's say, have affections for each other, that'd be very unprofessional. Besides, I don't know a thing about his sexuality. It's really not any of my business. To top it off, I'm not she'd even be interested in the relationship with anyone, period. I see. Not that you has any interest in, that's it. End of story. But about you being co-workers, didn't you say last night that both of you own the hotel? Are you familiar with couples who keep a business together? If memory serves, the Americans call them mom and pop stores. In this case it'd be pop and pop, yes, but it's the same thing. You really are quite persistent, aren't you? More than you can ever imagine. Well, I do appreciate the sentiment, Sean. I can see that you care. In the end, it all goes back to what Asteria and I would want. Honestly, I have a hard time imagining he'd be interested in romance. Would you be, though? Me? With Asterion in particular? Of course. Okay, now you're getting a little invasive. Oh, please, entertain this one last question. Let me rephrase it. For the sake of the argument, let's assume that all stars align, that Asterion both leans that way and harbours certain intentions towards you. Would you, shall we say, reciprocate? Look, Sean. If you want to know if I could be in a relationship with him, the answer is yes. I'd probably go for it. I do feel a great deal of affection for him, and maybe a bunch of things just sort of fell into place that could one day become something more. But that's not the point. Because he's my friend, first and foremost, I understand that romance isn't what he needs right now, and I'm comfortable being proud about the idea of pushing myself on him. Things are fine the way they are. That's my final word on the matter. I see. That is a very thoughtful answer indeed. I am sorry to have behaved so importunately, Leo. I know it's rude. However, for what it's worth, you've made this father quite glad. I keep thinking back to my son. Were he still alive, I'd be very happy if you and he were friends. The world needs more people like you. But enough dawdling. Time to go, my friend. Have a nice week. After seeing Jean off, you head to the office to plan the activities for the day. And this is where we're going to leave things for now. As I say, I want to do a slightly shorter video. Don't worry, we'll be back to Minotaur Hotel in January. I definitely want to carry on more with this. And I know that next time we're going to meet someone, which will be a lot of fun. And it gives me time to think about how he sounds. I have no idea yet, but as usual, I won't be giving him the accurate accent for where he's from because I suck at accents. But before I wrap up, as always, thanks to all my patrons. I very much appreciate you all. And my Art tier patrons are Grizz, Evan King, David Taylor, Samuto, Brian Hall, Anubis Silverwind, Ida Corval, Brandon Bradford, Bastian, Lark Huskerton, Marcus, Kopi, Gunnar Muller, Tiger Cub, Sindri Dragonwolf, Dissonance, Besuksu, Cobus Visser, and Kartek. Thanks, guys. So coming up later this month, and also later this year, before we get to the end of it. Why is it December already? Where's the year gone? We do have more Ocean Avenue, definitely coming up. I'm going to drop back into Tennessee. I know it's been a while since we've done that, so we'll be calling back there. We'll be back in the dystopian Vancouver of Backbone. As I record this, we recently had a Patreon update for Far Beyond the World, so they might be fitting that in sometime as well. And also a short little video I'm planning for Christmas Eve, a little Christmas something, which I hope you'll enjoy. Maybe something different towards the end of the month. I'm just trying to plan ahead, and hopefully things will calm down after this weekend. But having said that, thank you all for watching. There will be a short video during the week And next weekend's video is uncertain. I have to check on a couple of things, but there will be definitely something coming up next weekend as usual. Until then, thanks for watching and bye for now.